My family ignored my business launch, tried to hack into my systems, demanded a fifth of my earnings, and I confronted them with legal evidence, cutting them off permanently. I was 31, sitting alone in my gleaming new office, sweeping glitter off a floor no one had stepped on. The space still carried the scent of fresh paint and new carpeting. I had spent months perfecting every detail, from the sleek glass-walled meeting room to the coffee machine in the break area. This was supposed to be the pinnacle of my life, the grand opening of my company, a dream I'd chased for nearly a dozen years. Yet, the chairs remained empty. The catered spread sat untouched, except for one plate I ate to avoid waste. My name is Adrian Keller, and I've always been the dependable one in my family. The one who kept the peace, attended every celebration, and loaned money, even if it meant living on instant noodles for weeks. My younger brother, Marcus Keller, was always the favored child. No matter how reckless his actions, they were seen as bold, charismatic, or just Marcus being Marcus. When he dropped out of college after 3 semesters to discover himself, my parents called him a visionary. When he cycled through 4 jobs in a year, people said he was still searching for his calling. Meanwhile, I quietly graduated, worked double shifts at a warehouse, and lived in a cramped studio barely big enough for a bed and a desk. Every cent I saved went toward this goal. Building my own company, not a side gig or a hobby, but a fully registered business with employees and an office space meant to endure. So, when I signed the lease and opened the doors, I expected my family to share my pride. I sent digital invitations weeks in advance and even printed physical ones for my parents, knowing they'd claim the email never arrived. I planned sparkling wine, music, and a short speech to thank those who'd supported me. At 7 p.m., I stood by the entrance in my only good suit, waiting for familiar faces. By 7:15, I told myself they were just delayed. By 8 p.m., I checked my phone. No calls, no texts, no "we're on our way." By 9, I quietly told the caterer to pack up the leftovers. I didn't cry. I sat at a desk, sipping lukewarm wine from a plastic glass, staring at the empty lobby. Every sound echoed in the silent room. All I could think was that after everything I'd done for them, they couldn't show up for one night. Then my phone buzzed. A photo in the family group chat. Marcus and my dad stood in front of a shiny new barbecue grill, laughing, beers in hand. The caption read, "Housewarming Triumph." "No, sorry we missed your event." "No, congratulations, Adrian." Nothing. Just a casual announcement that they'd all chosen Marcus's housewarming over my grand opening. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My stomach churned, but part of me wasn't shocked. I packed away the decorations, turned off the lights, and went home. The next morning, a text from Helena Keller, "We need to talk about revenue. Your brother deserves a share." I stared at the screen, my coffee cooling. A share of what? Marcus hadn't invested a dime, lifted a finger, or even shown up. My company hadn't earned a cent yet. But suddenly, Marcus was entitled to something. I didn't respond immediately. I felt drained, not from the night before, but from years of being overlooked. I could already imagine the conversation. Helena would insist family comes first. Robert would say Marcus needs it more. Marcus was probably drafting a list of reasons why his vague contribution deserved a cut. For the first time, something inside me solidified. That text wasn't just a request, it was a threat. I had a choice: give in, as always, or do something different. I set down my phone, poured fresh coffee, and started thinking. That's when I realized I wasn't as powerless as they thought. I didn't reply to Helena's text that day or the next. Instead, I watched the group chat fill with more photos of Marcus's housewarming. Filled with inside jokes I wasn't part of. Each one fueled the quiet fire in my chest. By week's end, Helena texted again, "Adrian, please pick up. This is important." I finally responded, and what I said left her speechless. When I answered her call, Helena launched into her usual script. No greeting. No "how are you?" Just, "Adrian, we've been trying to reach you for days." I paused longer than usual, just enough for her to notice. "What's going on?" she asked, as if I were the one acting strange. "You're asking about revenue?" I said slowly, choosing my words. But none of you came to my company's launch. A long silence. I pictured her in her kitchen, hand on hip, already annoyed at being questioned. Adrian, she began, in that patient, patronizing tone she used when I was a kid, you know how important Marcus's housewarming was. Everyone was there. It wouldn't have been right to divide the family for one evening. One evening, I repeated, my voice flatter than intended. This wasn't a casual party. This was the launch of my business. Something I've worked on for years. She sighed, as if I were being theatrical. You're overreacting. Marcus is starting his life with Sophia Loren. You'll have other events. Now, about the revenue. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, cutting her off. Revenue? Helena, I haven't even signed my first clients yet. There is no revenue. Well, she pressed, Marcus says since he inspired you to start the company, he deserves a founder's share. Or at least a family discount for using your services. That stopped me cold. Inspired me? I asked, incredulous. Helena, I've been planning this since college. Marcus didn't even know what I was doing until last month. She kept talking, ignoring me. Look, your brother's building his life. You're single, no kids, you can afford to be generous. Think of it as supporting the family. The family needs this. That line again. I told her I had to go and hung up before she could respond. That was when I knew this wouldn't stop. My parents didn't see my company as mine. They saw it as the family's new asset, with Marcus first in line to claim his share. Things escalated over the next few weeks. Marcus texted me one afternoon, hey, bro, can you set me up with a partnership deal? I'll plug your company to my buddies, and you give me a lifetime free account. Fair? I stared at the message, stunned. Marcus had never promoted anything but his own parties. When I didn't reply right away, he followed up, Helena said you'd probably agree. Just tell me what to post. I didn't respond. A day later, Helena called again. Adrian, why are you ignoring your brother? He's trying to help your business grow. I asked calmly if she knew what Marcus was asking for, essentially free services. She brushed it off. It's just family. You're making a big deal out of nothing. But the group chat painted a different picture. Marcus sent a photo of his new patio furniture, captioned, thanks, Helena and Robert, for the loan. A cousin asked, what about Adrian? Didn't he just launch something? Marcus replied, yeah, but he's been weird about money lately. Helena chimed in, he's stressed. He'll come around. They were having full conversations about me, my money, and my company without me, right in front of me. Then came the final blow. An email from my accountant. Someone using Helena's email had tried to add a family partner to my company's bank account. They didn't have access, but the attempt alone made my stomach drop. I called Helena immediately. Oh, that, she said, affronted. I was just trying to make things easier for you. This way, Marcus could handle some finances and take the pressure off. I stayed silent for a long moment. Helena, I said, my voice low and steady, don't ever do that again. You don't touch my accounts. You don't ask about my accounts. This company is mine. She started to cry. You don't have to be so possessive. We're just looking out for you. But I didn't buy it anymore. I hung up and sat in my office, gazing out the window. The city below buzzed with people living their lives, making their own choices. And here I was, letting my family treat me like a child. For the first time, I seriously considered what it meant to set firm boundaries, not just saying no once, but ensuring they couldn't take from me again. The next day, Marcus texted, bro, you see the new patio heater I got? Come check it out. Also, when's that family discount happening? Robert says you're being selfish. Something in me shifted. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into every account tied to my name, shared streaming services, joint utilities, even the old family phone plan, and started making a list. If they thought they were entitled to what I'd built, they were about to learn how wrong they were. And this time, I wasn't going to warn them. 3 weeks passed. I was busy signing my first real clients, working late, surviving on coffee and takeout, and feeling proud. For a while, I thought the family drama would fade if I stayed quiet and focused on work. Then came the weekend that changed everything. It was Saturday morning, and I decided to sleep in for the first time in weeks. At 8 a.m., my phone started buzzing relentlessly. Helena called first, then Robert, then Marcus, then Helena again. I groaned, ignored it, and rolled over. Then a notification hit my company's internal dashboard, a flagged login attempt. Someone had tried accessing my account from an unfamiliar device. I sat up, opened my laptop, and checked the logs. 4 failed login attempts from an IP address near my parents' house. Someone was trying to break into my company's system, and not casually, they were testing passwords. My stomach dropped. I called Helena immediately. "Oh, good, you're up," she said brightly, as if it were a normal Saturday. "We were just talking about how to help you. Marcus and I thought you're working too hard, and if we had you start contributing to the family in a meaningful way. We suggest a family allowance, 20% of your monthly income, to be divided evenly among your parents and your brother. See this as a way to respect your origins." I sat in my office, clutching the letter so hard that the paper crumpled. My father, the man who couldn't be bothered to show up for the biggest night of my career, was now officially demanding a share of my income, not profits, but revenue, before costs and salaries. It was so absurd that I almost chuckled, but then it hit me, they were dead serious. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, gazing at the ceiling, recalling every time I'd bailed Marcus out. I once covered his rent after he blew his entire paycheck on a failed scheme. When I co-signed a loan for his car, he skipped 4 payments, tanking my credit score. Helena called me in a panic after Marcus got into a bar fight and needed cash for legal fees. Every time, I stepped up, and this was their repayment, trying to infiltrate my business before it even took off. The next weekend was the final straw. I was out for lunch with a friend when I got an alert that my company's security alarm had gone off. My gut twisted. When I rushed back to the building, I found my brother lingering outside the office door, fiddling with the keypad. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice bouncing off the walls. He startled, looking guilty for a split second before flashing a grin. "Chill, man. Helena said you wouldn't care if I picked up a few items. I told Sophia I'd give her a tour of your setup." "You tried to force your way in?" I demanded, my tone cold. "It's not forcing if it's family," he said, shrugging like it was the most logical thing ever. I just stared at him for a moment. I didn't know what to say. "You need to go," I finally stated, each word deliberate. He snorted. "Wow, seriously? You think you're above us now?" I stepped closer and dropped my voice. "If you ever try to enter this office again without my approval, I'll contact the authorities." His smile faltered. "You wouldn't test me." He left, grumbling something under his breath. When the door shut behind him, I locked it and stood there, my hands shaking. That was it. That was the boundary. They'd escalated from disregard to outright intrusion. I ignored all calls and messages for the rest of the weekend. I sat at my desk, reviewing every system I had: business profiles, personal finances, security options, and started reinforcing everything, understanding that this wasn't just about boundaries, this was a battle. And if they wanted to treat my business like their personal cash machine, they were about to learn what it meant when I slammed the door shut for good. I woke up on Monday feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My body wasn't aching. It was my chest, gut, and mind. Everything felt heavy. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long while, staring at my phone as it vibrated nonstop. Helena called twice, then Robert, then Marcus, each leaving voicemails that got more furious by the minute. "Adrian," Helena's voice cracked in the latest one. "Your brother said you threatened to involve the police. This is absurd, you need to apologize before this family completely unravels." I didn't hear the rest. I deleted it, got up, and went to the kitchen. I brewed coffee on autopilot and sat at the table, watching the steam rise from the cup. My family, dysfunctional as it was, had been my fallback for years. They were pushy, demanding, and manipulative. But they were still my family. And from childhood, I'd been conditioned to put their feelings first to keep the peace. But now, keeping the peace was destroying me. I hardly noticed when tears rolled down my face. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet, hot ones that blurred my sight until I had to set the cup down to avoid spilling. I didn't cry often. I'd trained myself not to. But that morning, I felt empty, like all the effort I'd poured into the stream had been drained by those meant to cheer it on. I called out sick from the office that day. My assistant handled things while I sat on the couch with my laptop, not working or watching anything, just staring. I opened the family group chat and scrolled back through months of messages. Every sarcastic jab at my expense. Marcus always praised for the bare minimum. My parents always brushing off my achievements as minor. As I read, something shifted. At first, it was just raw, biting anger. But beneath the anger, there was a deep sorrow. I'd strived so hard for their approval, to make them proud, but it was never sufficient. By day's end, I'd decided I wasn't going to keep trying. The next few weeks were brutal. I started skipping family events entirely. If Helena called, I let it ring to voicemail. If Robert texted, I ignored it. I worked longer hours, sometimes crashing at the office, just to avoid them. But the silence didn't make them vanish. Instead, they intensified. Helena showed up at my apartment one afternoon, banging on the door like she owned the place. When I cracked it open, she dove right in. "Adrian, this is immature. You can't keep shutting us out just because you're mad. Your brother is wounded. He was only trying to assist." "Trying to assist by forcing entry into my office?" I asked, my voice weary. "You're blowing it out of proportion," she said, waving it off. "He just wanted to check out the place. You should be pleased. He cares enough to get involved." I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt no guilt. "It's just space. I'm occupied," I said, shutting the door before she could reply. I leaned against it, heart pounding, but I also felt an odd sense of release. The following weekend, I skipped a long-planned family meal. Helena fired off 20 texts in succession. From concern, "Your grandmother was asking about you." To fury, "You're humiliating us by not attending." To subtle threats, "If you continue this, don't count on us when times get hard." To manipulation. I didn't answer but the quiet had its toll. Work grew challenging. I was drained constantly. My thoughts were always simulating arguments that hadn't happened. I stopped sleeping soundly. I'd wake at 4 a.m. in a cold sweat, picturing Marcus at my office door, smirking like it was all a joke. I was snappy with my team, curt with friends, and sloppy with small tasks. One night, I stayed at the office until sunrise, just crunching numbers, terrified I'd miss something crucial and the whole business would collapse, and my family would swoop in saying, "See, this is why you needed us." But under all the worry and fatigue, something else started to build. Clarity. One Friday evening, I sat in my office with a notepad and just began listing. Not emails or work duties, just a checklist. I wrote down every account with my name that my family could reach. Every joint bill, streaming platform, and old profile that still listed Marcus or my parents as additional users. Then I outlined all the ways they might try to meddle with my business, from hacking accounts to contacting suppliers to showing up unannounced. It wasn't just a task list. It was a plan, because I knew if I didn't act now, this would never stop. I spent the entire weekend executing that list. I contacted my bank for extra safeguards. I activated two-factor verification on every site. I shifted my personal funds to a new account at a different institution. I met with my lawyer about locking down the business papers so no changes could happen without my sign-off. Each action made me feel a little freer. By Sunday night, I leaned back in my chair, gazing at the office ceiling, and experienced something I hadn't in months. Peace, not joyful, not victorious, but serene. Because for the first time, I wasn't just responding to my family's moves. I was ready. And deep down, I knew that was only the start. Whatever happened next, I'd be prepared. And this time, they wouldn't see it coming. It's odd how much lighter everything feels when you stop chasing others' approval. After that weekend of fortification, something in me changed. I stopped scanning for messages from Helena and Robert, replaying fights in my head, or wondering what they were saying about me in the group chat. Instead, I focused on what I could manage and build. The following Monday, I got to the office before dawn. The city was quiet, still stirring, and for the first time in months, I was eager to be there. I made a fresh batch of coffee, sat with my notebook, and mapped out the next 4 months of business expansion. Though my first clients were small, referrals spread fast. One lead turned into another, and soon I had appointments with bigger companies, deals that could stabilize the firm's finances for the year. And without the constant hum of my family pressuring me, I was sharper and more attentive. One by one, the agreements started closing. I remember landing my first major client, a medium-sized outfit that had been shopping around for months. After our final presentation, the CEO shook my hand and said, "Adrian, it's clear you care about what you're creating. That's why we're going with you." I left that meeting smiling like an idiot. When the contract came through, I stayed late to verify the details. When I finally looked at the income projections, I leaned back in my chair and just stared at the ceiling, a grin spreading. This wasn't about scraping by anymore. This was thriving. Thriving opened new doors. Over the next few weeks, I updated the office equipment, brought on a part-time helper, and even consulted an expert to optimize processes. Each improvement made the operation smoother, freeing me to concentrate on planning. It felt amazing, even better, to see something I'd labored over for years finally flourish. But the best part wasn't the cash or the wins. It was the assurance. I stopped feeling diminished when my phone buzzed with a note from Helena or Marcus. I stopped fearing running into them at the store. In fact, I began disregarding them entirely. Helena left a long voicemail full of sighs and dramatic breaks. "Adrian, this has dragged on too long. Your brother is pained. Your father and I are pained. We just want to meet and find a way to collaborate. Family is meant to divide things." I didn't return the call. Instead, I played the message twice, calmly erased it, and went back to reviewing a new deal worth more than my last 4 clients put together. And then something curious happened. Marcus messaged me again, this time with a plea instead of demands. "Hey bro, know anyone hiring? Things are a bit rough right now." I looked at the screen for a while. I could have ignored him. I could have rubbed it in. Instead, I replied, "No, sorry. Busy here." That was all. The balance had shifted. I didn't need to shout or argue. I didn't have to justify myself. For the first time, I could simply opt out. And the quiet drove them crazy. The messages ramped up. Marcus asked if I could loan him rent money. Helena wondered if I'd fund a family vacation they'd already booked since they were short on cash. Robert sent a text saying he'd heard about my new clients and thought it was fair to spread some of the prosperity. I ignored it all. Instead, I kept building. In a few months, my income had doubled. I moved the business to a slightly bigger space with more sunlight and room to grow. I bought new fixtures, improved our systems, and even added a junior coordinator to ease my load. For the first time, I felt like a real executive. And that's when I began planning the next phase. Not just enduring and succeeding, but using my standing to protect myself forever. I set up a separate entity for my holdings, transferred my ideas into it, and arranged everything so if anyone tried to meddle legally, they'd face layers of complexity to even figure out what I held. I also updated my estate plan, something most people my age don't think about, to make sure it was all secured and beyond the reach of anyone claiming a share for family good. Each move made me feel more solid, more composed, more in control. But the twist was, the more I pulled back, the more vocal my family got.
Helena started emailing guilt trips about missing her son.
Marcus shared vague complaints on social media about selfish folks who forget their origins. Robert left voicemails about needing to talk family future. Marcus even appeared outside my office once more, but this time, he couldn't get in. I'd upgraded security to require badges and surveillance. I watched him on the monitor, pacing, tapping once or twice, then leaving. When my phone alerted me to the recorded video, I saved it as backup. Because, as proud as I was of my progress, I knew one thing for sure. They weren't done. They'd attempt again. And when they did, I wasn't going to sit idle. I was going to be ready not just to defend what I'd built, but to show them they couldn't handle me like this anymore. And for the first time, I felt a strange excitement, because I wasn't merely weathering their attacks. I was anticipating their next step so I could finally make my own. By spring, my company was in the best condition it had ever been. I had a small but loyal team, ongoing deals with several mid-sized groups, and steady funds to cover operations. The business no longer seemed shaky. It felt solid. And that solidity gave me the headspace to think about the broader view. I wasn't just running a firm anymore. I was crafting a barrier. One Friday afternoon, I was reviewing documents with my lawyer, approving final safeguards for the holding entity, when he casually asked, "You brought up family issues last time we spoke. Still want that provision blocking them from any financial control over the business?" "Yes," I said without pause. He nodded, jotting it down. "Smart move. You'd be amazed how many conflicts arise when a company starts succeeding. Families can be tricky." I almost chuckled. Tricky was putting it mildly. After the meeting, I took a long stroll through the city. The weather was nice, and for the first time in ages, I let myself slow down and reflect. That's when I noticed something odd. I hadn't heard from my parents in nearly 3 weeks. No messages, no calls, no surprise visits. At first, I thought they'd finally backed off, but then a call came from a mutual contact, a family friend who owned a small finance firm. "Adrian, just a heads up," he said, voice hushed. "Your brother stopped by my office last week, asking about forming a business alliance, and he named your company specifically." I froze mid-step. What exactly did he say? He claimed you'd likely bring him on as a partner soon, but he wanted to jump on the paperwork to speed things up. Sounded very sure of himself. I thanked him for the tip, ended the call, and stood on the sidewalk for a minute, letting the anger surge through me. Marcus was plotting something, and knowing my brother, it wouldn't be small. That weekend, I finally checked the group chat again. Not to reply, but to watch. Sure enough, there it was. Helena posted, "We're planning a family gathering next weekend to talk about some thrilling prospects." Marcus replied, "Yeah, excited to reveal what I've been developing." Robert added, "Adrian, you really should come. This could be huge for everyone." I set down the phone and felt something stir inside me. For months, I'd been defensive, warding them off, securing everything, trying to stop their interference. But now, I had the upper hand. Because the reality was, my company wasn't a fragile startup anymore. It was profitable and protected, and thanks to the reorganization, I was the sole person with legal authority to decide its fate. That family meeting was their latest ploy, no doubt a setup to pressure me into sharing equity or funds. But I decided to flip the script. Instead of ignoring it, I replied in the chat for the first time in months, "I'll be there. Let's discuss everything openly." There. Responses flooded in, enthusiastic emojis from Helena, a thumbs up from Marcus, and a simple good from Robert. They thought they'd won, that I'd caved. But I had my own plan brewing. Over the next week, I gathered evidence, screenshots of their demands, logs of the login attempts, the security footage of Marcus at my door, even the handwritten note about the 20% stipend. I consulted my lawyer again, who helped draft a cease and desist letter outlining their harassment and attempted intrusions, warning of legal action if it continued. I also prepared a presentation, not for business pitches, but for the meeting, a timeline of every favor I'd done for them, contrasted with their betrayals, ending with proof of my company's independence. The day arrived. I walked into my parents' house, calm and composed, carrying a folder. They greeted me warmly at first, Marcus smirking like he'd already claimed victory.
Helena set out coffee, chattering about unity. Robert steered us to the living room for the discussion.
Marcus launched in, unveiling his big idea, a partnership where he'd join my company as co-owner, handling expansion while taking a salary in equity.
"It's perfect," he said. "Family business, right? And since I inspired you, it's only fair." I let him finish, then opened my folder. "Actually, let's talk facts." I laid out the evidence piece by piece, the ignored launch, the demands, the break-in attempts, the entitlement. Their faces shifted from confusion to defensiveness. Helena interrupted, "This is family. We're just helping." Robert grumbled about ingratitude. Marcus accused me of exaggeration. Then came the twist. I slid the cease and desist across the table. "This ends now. My company is mine alone. Any more interference, and I'll pursue charges for harassment and attempted fraud." But I wasn't done. I revealed I'd already filed a report with the authorities about the alarm trigger and login hacks, naming them as suspects. And the real bombshell? I discovered Marcus had been using my old warehouse contacts, ones I'd shared years ago, to pitch his own side business, undercutting my clients with stolen ideas. The room went silent. Marcus blanched, he'd thought I didn't know. Helena burst into tears, Robert stammered denials. I stood up. "I'm done being your ATM. If you want success, earn it like I did." I walked out, blocking their numbers on the spot. Months later, my company thrived, free of shadows. Marcus's venture fizzled, exposed as a sham. Helena and Robert faded into distant echoes. For the first time, I built not just a business, but a life on my terms, with chosen family who celebrated, not claimed. And in that freedom, I found peace.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a twist. Stay tuned to Reddit Tales Times for your daily dose of drama, laughs, and unbelievable stories.